Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that. I also love it when people leave comments, so if you have a question about the video, or a suggestion for a video, or some constructive criticism, or just want to tell me how you do things, that's always great to learn, so leave me a comment. So I haven't done an animal-themed one for a while, and it occurred to me that I've never done anything with wolves. So I'm going to do 3 different projects that have a wolf motif to them. And I think that should be fun. We'll do one with mixed metals. One is going to have a couple of stones for eyes. I have some little green chrome diopsides that one of my patrons sent me. Roz, thank you for that. And then the final one is going to be kind of shaped out of a slab, so we'll see if I can pull that one off or not. I did have a little piece of slab that I can use, so we'll give it a try. Before we get started, I'd like to thank some groups of people. First off, my patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. I think they are awesome, and they are some of my very favorite people. And I do appreciate not only the financial help that they provide, but also the great community that they've built over there. And I think it's a nice place with a lot of really nice people, so thanks for that. My YouTube subscribers, we just passed 18,200, and that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. And I do also appreciate the nice comments I get from you guys. It's nice to know when someone lets you know that you've helped them in some way, because that makes you feel like a useful person, so thanks for that. I do also appreciate the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks. That really helps with the cost of materials, which as of late have been relatively expensive, so thanks for that. Alright, well, let's get started on these projects. So this is one of my design idea books you can get on my merch store. This particular version has a conversion chart on the back that I find useful, and it's fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters, as I use the metric system most of the time anymore, but I'm still kind of programmed to think in those terms. So, alright, they're also a great place to draw up your designs and keep a record of what you've made. Okay, so like I said, today we're going to do some wolf theme things. I have in mind 3. This one's going to be the 2 metal overlay one. I already cut out a circle that's about 30 millimeters in diameter out of 18 gauge sheet silver, which is just a little over a millimeter thick, 1.02. And then I have some 14 gauge copper sheet that I'm going to cut this design out of. So I kind of transferred it over to a piece of paper, and we'll cut it out with the saw. And then we'll just solder those two together, and I think for this one it's going to be a pretty straightforward piece, probably a beginner sort of piece, and a good sawing practice. Sawing is not my strongest suit, so I'm going to do my best, but we'll see how it comes out. And I'm going to put a hidden bail on the back. Probably some of this, I have some of this flattened 14 gauge square wire from the other day when I did a project. And so I'll probably use that to make 2 little hidden bails on the back side of the silver disc that's going to be the kind of a moon, I suppose, in the background behind the wolf's head. And we'll also have to drill out this eye and saw that out too as well. So the second project, I think I'm going to try and do a ring made out of 14 gauge square wire primarily. And I have made a couple of bezels in advance for these little chrome diopsides, which are going to go there. These may be, I'm going to play this by ear as far as how I'm going to attach those there. This is going to be kind of an angular stylized sort of head, and then the band is going to kind of be his tail wrapping around there. I'm not sure why it's attached to the side of his head, but that's what it's going to be. So we'll create that kind of pattern and see how it turns out. And then we'll solder those bezels in there. If you want to see how to make a faceted stone bezel, I have a video about that. I usually don't show the bezel making on these triple project videos, but there's plenty of other videos in my catalog that have me making bezels. So, final piece, I'm going to try and sculpt kind of out of a slab. I I have a little slab here that I've already scratched out the, you probably can't see it, but I've scratched out kind of the pattern on here. And I cut the bottom part a little bit just to save some time, but we'll cut out the rest of it. And then these are going to be scooped out kind of, and I'm going to have to use probably maybe my saw a little bit, and then probably the file, and then also some diamond burrs maybe on my Dremel to carve those out. Same way with the ears here. And I want those to kind of be concave, going like this. Same way with this, to kind of give it more three-dimensionality. And again, probably put some little rings on the back of the ears and hook chain, you know, a split chain to it to make that into a pendant. So we'll see. But to start with, I think we need to saw this guy out. So let's go over to the probably relatively messy sawing area. I think there's a 00 on my saw here. Let's go ahead and drill a hole through the eye. So let's go clean that up, and then we'll see if we can solder it down. So I cleaned up the edges a little bit with my Dremel with an abrasive white silicone wheel, just to kind of smooth them out. Now I'm going to pre-melt some solder on the back of this copper, and then we'll get everything fluxed and put it where I want it to go over here, and then we'll see if we can't get it to solder down. So if you've never been to my channel before, I use hard silver sheet solder primarily. And I use liquid flux that I dribble on with a dropper bottle. And my torch is a Silversmith model. It's an acetylene air torch. It draws in atmospheric air through these little holes to mix with the gas. And I use a #1 tip. And that is pretty much most of the questions that people ask me. If you have others, feel free to ask. You always want to get things nice and crusty when you're fluxing them. So I'm going to pre-melt the solder on the back of the copper pieces so that it'll kind of contain the solder excess when it flows, and it won't spread out beyond where they meet here. It won't do that if it comes to the edge. So the other thing is, you could just place these up here, but I'm just going to pick them up with my pick, which I do a lot. And if you're interested in learning about pick soldering, I'll put a link up there for you. It's just kind of a nice way to put some solder where you want it to go. Make sure there's enough solder, especially near these projecting areas, so it flows all the way to the end there. So once I get this hot enough, it should spread out into puddles a little bit. Sometimes these things move around a little bit too much. You have multiple pieces that aren't soldered together yet. So I'm going to stick a pin over here so I can push on it a little bit without things moving around. That's pretty close. What do you say we try and solder that down? Let's do it. You got to get all of the pieces up to the right temperature And the big piece of silver on the bottom is the least exposed to the heat, so that's going to be the hardest one to get up to that temperature. So if we really want this to adhere to it, we've got to focus most of the heat down there. From that angle, so let's mark the top there, and we'll that's where we'll put our hidden bales. And I made a couple of those out of the flattened square wire I was talking about earlier. Kind of like that. And let's we'll just use a little solder there and get those on there. Those on there, so I'll pickle that and then we'll come back to it. Okay, for this one we're going to make it out of 14 gauge square wire, and I may have to make it just slightly bigger than this just because of the size of those stones are a little bit bigger than that, so we'll see. But I think we'll start by making these two V's, and in order to get a sharp bend in wire, let's do this. It needs to be about that long at least, so we'll make a mark there. And then if I want to make a nice sharp bend right there, if I file part of the way through, if you want to, you can line this up on some bench pin or something, file if you prefer. I think that'll be okay. Maybe I should make, I think maybe I should make the outer piece all in, like in two pieces from here all the way down to here. If we do that, it's just slightly bigger. Cut a notch right there and then bend it again. Let's use a smaller file here to get it started. We're going to cut it off about right there. Just to make sure nothing moves too much, let's solder this one everywhere I have one of those little notches, there and there, to make it a permanent seam. Now that that's less likely to move, I can use that as a template for the second one. Okay, I think now, let's file this flat, both of those planes. I rather like that. Let's solder those together. It's a little bit longer in the face than this guy was, but that's okay. Kind of building this from scratch, so what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, so now we need to go from here to here. So kind of like from there to there, like that. So I want it to go from about there to there. So let's make a scratch. There. That looks pretty good so far. Kind of want it like that. So I'm going to solder that closed. and then we'll solder it in there, I think, and that'll be our next step. I think for this bottom piece, since it needs to be kind of flared outwards like that, I might use a little bit of flattened, this is flattened 10 gauge, I think, really, which is about the same thickness as that. So let's cut this off. We need kind of a, let's go to about right. That sticks up way too high, so we need to get that a lot further down. I kind of need to grab these eyes, because these are going to go up here somewhere. But I think in order to make them work, I'm going to have to cut into these wires a little bit with the saw, maybe. So I will figure that out, though. But we need to okay, now you'll notice there's a little, I think if I take a piece and I file it so it's like a concave, and I may use the rotary tool to do it, then I can take these two individual kind of little curls like that, and we'll just put them right on there. I think that'll work, so let's do that. I'll be right back. Went ahead and made a little tail band out of 14 gauge for him. I thought we could kind of solder it on there. Slight angle like that so it wraps all the way around. And I was shooting for kind of a about an 8.5 or a 9, something like that. See if we get close to that. If you didn't want to do stones on this, you could put some little kind of eye-shaped pieces of silver in there, probably. I'm not 100% sure how well those stones are going to look in here, but we'll see. these little bezels to be right here. So I think I'm going to have to saw out a little spot on either of these. Kind of like there. And then something similar on the other side, I guess. Yeah. And then we'll solder those in there and we'll see how it works. So I cut a little notch, and I did one of them already, but we're going to do this other one here, and I'm going to try and do it without dropping this one off. I used a little easy paste solder on these ones. Let's see what it's going to look like with little green eyes. Kind of like that. I think he's pretty cool. Alright, well, we'll get him pickled up and we'll work on the last one. Like I said, the last one, we have to go over and cut out this shape here, so let's do that. And this is going to be some serious sawing, so I may not show you the whole thing because I got to go all the way around. And then we have to start shaping these, and then we'll go from there. But okay. I may do some refining. This ear is quite a bit bigger than this ear, so I'll have to do a little bit of filing probably. Alright, I'll be right back. So I think I'm going to use a ball burr to remove some of this material. So I started doing a little bit on the cheeks. You can see I kind of flared those down and I'm starting to carve them away. And I'm using these abrasive white silicone wheels. But I want to take some of the material off first with a ball burr so I don't go through so many of those wheels because they get ground away pretty quickly. Okay, I'm going to change out that other wheel and we'll do some smoothing out now. I don't want to mess with it too much though. It looks pretty good, so I think I'm going to leave it be. And let's add those little loops on the back for some chains to hook to, and then we'll be good. Alright, I have some little half jump rings made out of 16 gauge round right here. I need to get these kind of fluxed in place. I'm going to put them on the backs of the ears of this guy. This one tipped over on me. Alright, that looks pretty good. Let me make sure I have some solder up there. I wanted to thank all those people who have purchased my recent ebook, which is a guide to all of my videos from last year. Really appreciate it. There's pages for, I think, roughly 170 videos there. Includes things like the original sketch that I drew and a picture of the final piece, a list of materials you need to make it, and the skill level, like what I would kind of call it as far as beginner, intermediate, advanced, and some notes that I made about each project. Things like, did I enjoy the project? Were there things I might do differently if I was to do it again? I usually learn something every time I do one of these. So, and then there's a link right to the video itself. So you should check that out. It's a great way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, kind of. So right now here, what I'm doing is I'm soldering some very small things to something that's relatively massive. And so the hard part to get up to the soldering temperature is the big chunk of silver that I'm soldering them to. Not so much the rings. They're very small and easy to get up to that temperature. But if I want it to be a strong join between the two, then they need to all reach that 1450 degrees. So I'll cool that off, and then I'll double check those solder joins, and if so, I'll make a little split chain for it. But in the meantime, I'm going to let these pickle and go have some dinner, maybe feed my wife. Don't want a hangry wife. That looks on. I think those are on there. Okay, I'm going to let those pickle. I'll be back. Alright, with the exception of shining these up with a polishing cloth, before I take some pictures, there's the one with the copper and the silver together. He came out pretty nice. Here's the ring with the chrome diopside for eyes. I like that. It's sort of wolf-like. And then this one that's just kind of shaped out of an ingot. So, and like I said, on the back I just put a couple of little loops there. So I'll get some better pictures and put those at the end. Okay, well that was the 3 wolf themed projects. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. And I would love it if you take a moment and visit my main channel page. I have 440 some videos there, and I've been doing 3 per week for 3 years or so, and that adds up to quite a few. And I think if you enjoyed this one, there's almost certainly something else you'll find over there that you'll enjoy as well. There's tons of projects at all different levels. There's some techniques and just all sorts of stuff over there. So watch a few of those and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you. Also, before you go, hit the video description down below for some important links. There's a link to those design idea books I told you about at the beginning that are so handy for me. You can get those on my merch store. There's also a link to buy my new 2024 ebook, which has a guide to all of the videos from last year, over 170 I believe. And that's a great way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and a great way to support my channel. Finally, there's a link to Patreon if you want to find out a little bit about that community. It's a great place with a lot of nice people who know quite a few things. So I've learned a whole lot of different techniques and skills from them. So check it out. Come back and visit again. Take care. Happy silversmithing.